It's Star Wars Day, if you didn't know. uh, it's funny that maybe I should mention for those of you who don't know me is like I've worked a long time on Star Wars properties because I worked at Lucasfilm for many years, and I've done other things too. Right? I worked at Pixar for a brief while before that, and a ton of other independent places and Sony and video games at Sammy Studios. But I think if I tally up, because then recently I was directing on the Resistance project, which was the last animated TV series that Lucasfilm did, and I was directing on that, and I also helped them on story. So I've been around the Star Wars universe, and it's a fun thing. I saw people posting today about May the Fourth, and it's a cool little. If you think about it, it's kind of with the topic goes in line with the topic I want to talk about today, which is art promotion and drawing skills, of course, too, which I want to talk about. But art promotion is a big thing. So that's something that the Lucasfilm game, if anything, is working solid, and it was working great when I was there too. Was the publicity department and advertising that they did. I was always so impressed about how they handled that stuff, and they came up with some really really cool ideas for promotion and things at Comic Con and everything to drum up the fans. And I think that's part of it. It was just because I remember they didn't, I don't remember May the 4th. Like that kind of started around like 2009, 2010, if I remember correctly. But somebody correct me on that history. But before that, I don't remember this whole May the 4th thing. So they came up, somebody in the publicity department at Lucasfilm came up with that stuff, and it stuck. And of course, they had their own convention, and it's great to to participate in that stuff. So big shout out to you guys. What's up, Tim? Good to see you, buddy. My mentorship buddies there. Great to see everybody. Awesome. Things are filling up here. Yeah, you guys are commenting on my t-shirt. So anyway, I got my sketchbook in hand, right? And this is what I got right now. Of course, I'm sitting in front of my computer too, and I have my digital setup. And of course, I draw a lot on a Wacom screen and tablets and everything in between. But I'm really partial to pen and paper and the classical stuff. It's so easy. Like something like this, I carry around all the time. And sometimes I'll admit I actually carry it and it goes along for the ride, and I don't do anything with it. But the reason I carry it though is anytime there's something that I want to like jot down, any kind of idea, anything that I see that's really interesting, like sketch or something that happened. Certainly now with like my wife and kid, like I'll draw them because they're like free models, right? and and so I'll show you guys. Can you see that? That's my baby. So there, it's stuff like that. Just whenever you have a chance, draw something, and I'll see if I can picture something. Like here, look at this. This was at like poolside, okay, and or the beach. I don't remember exactly, but hopefully you guys can see that. Just sketching there. The idea here is that you get in the habit of constantly drawing. So we're talking story, we're talking drawing skills, and we're talking art promotion. Now, one thing I want to just mention right off the bat, this is a discipline, it's a mental discipline that you get better with over time. It's like practicing the piano. You're going to start out pretty raw. If you don't know your scales, and you sit there, you don't have the coordination with your fingers and stuff, but you practice day in and day out, and it's a mental discipline. You get that coordination better. After a while, you're going to start playing amazing piano concertos, right? And the same thing goes with your art. That's the only way to get better. There is no shortcut, okay? You have to put in the time, and you have to put in the hours of practicing your drawing. So think about, when you're a kid, you did this anyway. You did it because you loved it. And this is what you have to be doing as an adult and as a pro and somebody who's like really dedicated to this. You have to love drawing. There's no way around it, because then you won't be doing it unless you really love it and you really get into it. So you want to get into the studies, and you want to learn your figure drawing and your skills and all of the classical art stuff that you should be doing anyway. You have to learn that, and you got to be into it. And so I fell in love with that stuff, and that's why I got into this. I also love stories, and then translate translates really easily to doing storytelling because you're using the drawing medium of communicating ideas and simplifying your images and your compositions to communicate an idea, right? So let's get that straight. Is that if you're in this business and you want to be a story artist, but you don't like drawing, this is the wrong thing for you. This is not the business. Go do something else. Become a writer, become a producer, maybe go into 3D art, whatever it is. But if you don't love to draw, if you don't have your like pencil to paper all the time, you're doodling, coming up with ideas, it's going to be really difficult because that drawing aspect takes many years. I'm talking about. It's not like you can't do this in a month. You can't. I don't care how gifted you are. I don't care if you're the most badass kid back in your kindergarten drawing rings around everybody else. It's just not going to cut it. I had a really funny conversation I remember with a guy at Lucasfilm. I showed him artwork from a famous actor. I won't name who it is, and I thought it was pretty good. I was like, oh man, look at this guy's illustration. He's pretty good. Surprising. Wow, this guy's an actor and he can draw and he loves art. And I showed this to one of my buddies at Lucasfilm, and he looked at it and he's like, hey, it's pretty good, but can he work here? And I was like, it kind of caught me off. I was like, oh, well, yeah, probably not, because he didn't have the chops we didn't see that in his portfolio of work for this guy, that he didn't have the chops necessarily to work at a really high octane place like Lucasfilm or Disney or any of these other industry places, because it really does take that kind of dedication. And the ironic thing is, when you're in the mix there, you have to draw so fast and you end up simplifying. You might say, oh, that looks like kids play. You're just sketching, you're just doodling. There's nothing that special about how fancy you're drawing. But it's the knowledge that you've built up over the years to be able to draw fast and simple and direct and understand your perspective and really get the shot and the lens choice and everything else that's involved with visual storytelling. Get that out the door to be able to communicate your ideas. That's what's really important. Okay, so drawing skills are super, super important with that. I'll mention too, just as we're on these chats, we're going to go for about half an hour, and I want you guys to throw in your questions. Maybe you're bouncing off ideas from each other, so use that time to do that too. Network on my watch. I think that's fantastic. We all should be doing that. But if you have any doubts, any questions, anything, any comments you want to put out there, let's do that, and I'll see if I can get to it and repeat it here live. Okay, so then the art skills is a very important thing. You need that. And okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about with art skills, what are some resources that you can go to? There's plenty of online schools that you can do. You can go in person, hopefully, when things open up with the whole Corona thing, that you could go back to figure drawing groups, to sketch groups. And so it would have like a more focused and guided thing, right? But I'm talking about classical art skills, so you understand your proportions, you understand your anatomy, you understand your light and shade, that you can render something by hand, right? And you understand light sources and how, the light hits and you get a highlight and you get a cast shadow. So these are all things you need to understand and be able to recreate in 2 dimensions, right? On paper, on digital, whatever. You can also learn about color. That's also really great. So you get value and you get depth. But these are classical art skills that you need to learn, right? Then there's gesture drawing and quick sketch stuff. So go to the zoo and draw people out at the park or at a cafe, or watch a movie or freeze frame something from photo reference, but you're drawing, okay? You're drawing. And that's what you need to be doing. What else? Okay, so let's get that under the back. If there's any doubt about resources, certainly we have drawing courses that you can check out at Storyboard Art. They're focused on storyboarding and story-specific stuff. So we don't our platform does not necessarily focus a lot on rendering technique and the whole like preliminary anatomy stuff. It does focus on compositional things, so you can learn how to do that once. So you have to have your art skills already, basically, to come to this. But I've seen it many times, many times, people who have just really basic art skills, but they are in it to win it. They go over many years and they power through it. They learn and they become fantastic, very skilled veteran artists. And actually, with that kind of dedication, they can do it in a really short amount of time. So I'm talking 3 to 4 years of absolute passion, and you're going to become really good at the end. I'm really good. Like, you can become at the professional level by doing that. Okay. It's just like I said with the piano. if you study piano for 8 hours a day for 3 years, what do you think? You're going to be playing like Chopin, my friend. So that's what you want to be looking for. Okay. Um, Now I want to talk a little bit, and we'll get into your questions after this. I want to talk a little bit about art promotion. And I mentioned May the 4th and how Lucasfilm does it, and that is a really good idea. So there's certainly with social media and the way we're so interconnected now, it is a much more open way of promoting yourself. So you could be in the backwoods of whatever country, and if you have an internet connection and you have something to show, you can promote your artwork and you can create a following for yourself. And the idea here, and I'm going to focus this for creating jobs, is that will lead to jobs, and then you can survive. You can use that to create a career, and you can do this for a living. That's the whole point, is that you enjoy what you're doing, you're being creative, and you can make a career out of this. So just like people become bankers and engineers and architects and doctors and all that stuff, the one thing that they always think you're going to be a starving artist and forget is that you go into the art field and all of a sudden you have to be doing 3 other jobs to support yourself, and that's not true, because the industries have always existed. Artists and illustrators and designers and all of that has always been around, probably since the beginning of time, my friends. And go back, to the 1500s. Like Leonardo da Vinci was a badass, and he was a high roller. Like this guy was really well known and famous when he was alive, and he was well off. He was wealthy because he had high commissions from kings and nobles and all that kind of junk. And those paintings are irreplaceable. So because he's dead, so you can't make another Leonardo da Vinci. And in fact, didn't they? I missed it. There was the recently discovered Leonardo painting that came through. Or was it a sketch? I forgot. That came through San Francisco and was on its way to New York, and I missed it by 2 days. And I really wanted to see it in person. At any rate, they discovered it was worth $350 million. Okay, so there's plenty of career opportunities in this. For us artists who want to be storytellers and express ourselves with art. Okay. Now the promotion side of this, what can you do in the modern sense of the word? I think the obvious things, and I'll just point this out and then we can get a little bit deeper in it. Obviously, set up your social media. You should have your own website. If you don't own your own domain, you should get one. It's so cheap nowadays, relatively cheap. It doesn't even have to be like your own name. It could be whatever you want. Artjunk.com. I don't know, artjunkie.com. And you get that. You can get a Wix page, which is like free. You can Squarespace, which is low cost. It's a lot easier nowadays, at least that. Then you link all your social media, open a LinkedIn account, open a Facebook account, open a Instagram account. And sometimes we get messages like, and this is probably pertinent now because people want to unplug and get off the grid, and they think the big bad companies are going to come get you. Yes, that might be true. So it's up to you whether you want to participate. But all of my social media, if you actually look at that stuff, I actually don't really, just because I'm not interested, I don't post that much personal stuff. All of my stuff is related to the work I'm doing or the career that I'm in it, because that's the lifestyle that I live. I don't, certainly I have other interests, but I don't go taking photographs of my breakfast, right? Because I don't find that pertinent to to promoting myself as an artist. Okay, and so that's just a personal thing. But so what I'm trying to say here is that my social media and my online presence is directed at creating a professional presence, so that when people look me up and you do a search, the first things that are going to come up are what I'm doing as a career, and that's job security, and that's also promotion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the basic. You set those up, you'd be fine. Okay. The next step in terms of promotion is you can come up with a couple of ideas of how to connect to the people that you want to work with or that you want to see your work, and either want to jump up in your career or to simply make more connections and hopefully start a relationship with somebody to network and move on up to the next level. That's something that we cover. We did a networking course, which is kind of a summary of some of these ideas and actually how to reach out to these people. There's ways to do it, which is a little more pro versus like, hey, I love your work, and you just become like this kind of scary stalker fanboy. And there's ways to do that so you don't come across as creepy. And you come across the way you want to. You want to show somebody respect and then get some respect in return, and hopefully eventually start a relationship there. Okay. Um, all of these strategies work together so that you can maintain your contacts in your career. And then the good thing that I want to mention to everybody, especially those not in the US market, hopefully you guys are international too, is that it's global. So it doesn't matter where you live anymore. Now more than ever with the whole COVID thing, you can be anywhere as long as you have a good internet connection. In fact, people on their cell phones with just a cell line can beam their stuff and interact and send messages and actually work and be productive no matter where you live. I heard a story. This was from an art director friend of mine who hired a concept artist that, again, I'm not going to say names or anything, but apparently this artist was getting paid a ton of money, or let's say a significant amount of money for doing designs and a very the going artist rate, and he was working off overseas on a boat with a satellite internet connection, and so he was able to figure out his setup, and then that was his lifestyle. Doesn't that sound romantic? That you could be sailing around wherever you are, and you're just creating, you could spend a couple hours a day creating stuff on a boat while you watch the sunset on the ocean, right? Now I don't know all the details of that, and this was a friend of mine who was working with this guy. So I haven't done that personally, but I have traveled around the world while working, and I always carry and most of the time, especially if I know I'm going for an extended period of time, I usually have a computer, and the computer I usually take is a portable Cintiq for doing work, and so I can draw and do my work while I'm overseas or anywhere else. So things are set up for that. Like you can, most hotels have Wi-Fi connections, or you can even go to a cafe. Starbucks has saved my ass many times, like because they have really solid internet. So I used to be a hater of Starbucks. I mean, man, these guys are trying to take over the world, and they're ruining the small coffee guy. But when they saved my ass more than once, I said, hey, I'm gonna actually take a second look at it, and actually this coffee tastes pretty good. So so my hat's off to those guys. I think they actually do a respectable job, and I like many coffee houses, and they're one of mine that I frequent. Okay, let's get into your questions. So enough about me blabbing on. Great to see you guys. Hey, Chad, what's up? Hey, Keely is on there. How are you? Good to see everybody. So, thanks, Kumar. You like my sketches. That's very sweet, especially coming from you, my friend. You're an excellent artist yourself. Okay, let me go through these because there's a ton of questions. Let me see how we can answer some of these. So, all right. So this is a good question in terms of technique. So Mary Comics here is asking, can you still learn anatomy by drawing constantly from life, models, and references instead of learning from tutorials? Um, I kind of think you have that question worded backwards. The way you learn anatomy is by drawing from life, models, and references, and not necessarily from tutorials. So that's the way you classically did it, right? So let me answer your question in a number of ways. This I think is a good question for everybody to understand. We're going to talk about anatomy, proportions, all that good stuff. Tutorials are great, and you can watch these guys break down how to draw the human figure, and most of the time people will show you in a simplified way. The traditional way of learning your anatomy and figure drawing is going and seeing a life model, somebody who gets naked in front of you. No joke, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is for real. They get naked in front of you and you draw them, right? It's not a sexual thing. It's like appreciation of the human figure and understanding where the anatomy is, the bones, the muscles, the weight, the fat, everything that is involved with the human body, and understanding how that it's building up your visual memory so that you can use that in your work. And this is a very serious and professional thing you want to be doing. and and you'd learn from men and women. And in fact, when we're in school, I drew many kids because we're learning how to draw kids, and their proportions and their facial features are much rounder. And it's the whole thing. And you can even draw animals, all of that stuff. So I would recommend you do it all. Okay, and yes, drawing constantly, and if you can get a hold of models, and the thing is, it doesn't have to be that elaborate. So when I say that's the best scenario, when you can go into an art studio and you have a professional model or somebody who does this regularly, either clothed or nude, and they pose for you. Clothed figure is actually excellent to draw because you see how the folds fall on the body, the bones, and the muscles, and all that. You have to understand what's going on underneath, but that is also really really cool. That's the best scenario. The second best is doing photo reference and probably uh, yeah, let me think if anything else. Well, there's sculpture, you can draw from sculptures. So you can do this at home. So if you got a pet, draw your pet. Understand where those bones and muscles are. Have a book right by your side, and then draw that. Draw your pet, your animal. Know where the hips are. Know where the shoulder blades, especially on a four-legged animal, pop out. The skull, like the skull shape, all that. That's really important to do. Okay. uh, so yeah, let us know if you have any questions about that one. And then yeah, to Polar Bear 1700 here is saying, when sketching figures, do you need to know and understanding of anatomy? Of course, my friend. I don't see how. There's no way you can draw a figure and you can like copy what you've seen and what you know from like comic books or cartoons and stuff, because there's like cartoon anatomy as well. But when you're drawing a human figure, if you don't understand your anatomy, you are at a absolute disadvantage. So my very urgent emphasis is that if you get serious about this, get into your anatomy. It's actually really, really fun when you understand, and you only need to know the surface stuff. Like, I'm not talking about veins and like how many, what's going on in your heart and organs and stuff like that. No, no, no. Just do your surface anatomy, where the bones and the muscles and the things that you can see. And then that's how you simplify it. And then when you get there, you get it. And trust me, it is the way that you can do really cool comic poses. It's the way that you can exaggerate stuff and do foreshortening and understand how the hands are working and how to manipulate that. It's more squarish up here, and that your heel is also more square. There's a square knee, right? There's ways to understand the relationships from different body parts. So that's really really important. Okay. Uh, yeah, and actually, Chad has a good comment here. He's saying, uh, as far as like how much practice you need, like for whatever reason it went around that you need at least 10,000 hours to be good at anything. I forgot who it was who's famously quoted that. And so he says it's supposed to be 10,000 hours to become a master. And even that is lowballing it. You're right, man. How many baskets did Michael Jordan shoot from when he was a kid till when he was a pro playing for the Bulls, right? Was it 10,000? It's probably more like a million, right? No exaggeration. It's probably in the hundreds of thousands, if not closer to a million, right? So that's how many shots that guy took, right? And the same thing goes. How many drawings are you going to make with this? Um, so, and then also to springboard off, just to talk more about these drawing skills. So Polar Bear 1700 is saying, what is a good source to learn lighting? Certainly, there's a bunch of good books out there. Another online resource that I would recommend is Evolve Artist. If you go to evolveart.com, I believe that it is. If not, look up Evolve Artist. And the guys who I know these people because I interviewed the founder, Mitch Bowler, or Mitch Bowler, sorry. Mitch is founder of Pencil Kings, and then he also started up another online learning platform that really gets deep into understanding the form and painting and proper life drawing. And that's a really good reference to check that out. So check out those guys. Also, I highly recommend Bodies in Motion photo. That's another online reference for that stuff. Great. So, and then we'll talk about portfolios too, how many sketches and stuff we should add there. So let me just read some of these things. Yeah, because we're getting some storyboard questions. And actually and I'll get to some of your other questions, but Mary Comics, you have some really great questions here. Are 8 hours of drawing per day enough if you want to purchase a career as story artist or pursue a career as a story artist? Um, Absolutely, man. If you can even manage to draw 8 hours a day, that's an incredible feat. It really is a lot. And yes, if you do that for 1 year, you're going to see amazing improvement. Amazing improvement. Like I said, imagine the piano. If you start today and then 365 days later, you continue that pace, I guarantee you're going to understand music and be able to work that piano like nobody else. So the ironic and funny thing about drawing is that I don't necessarily see the progress from day to day. It's an interesting phenomenon that I'm talking about in this theory of um, of understanding uh, like how you can improve, and so that sometimes you might get depressed for some of that. The reason I paused here, I got distracted, is to check out this Chewbacca and Han Solo sketch I did, and it's just really random, but that goes in line with May the 4th and the Star Wars Day. But anyway, talking about improvement, it's cumulative, so you have to do this many hours uh, as a mental discipline to be able to improve. And so you can't do it and just give it up and just expect everything to be fine. You can't do it for 1 hour and then all of a sudden think you're great. It has to be constant improvement, and you have to love it and constantly do it. So yes, the thing is, okay, let me talk about that 8 hours. You're saying if you can manage 8 hours, you're going to burn yourself out after a month. For anybody who's really dedicated to that, that's fantastic. If you can do it, I highly encourage you to do that, and you should really fall in love with that process. What I recommend is at the minimum level, you should be doing like 20 minutes a day. Can you manage an hour a day? Maybe half an hour a day. But if you can even get to 1 hour of focused drawing and artwork per day, that's 7 hours a week. And again, it's cumulative. It builds on itself. So that's fantastic. If you can do that, that would be wonderful. And you will see great improvement by doing that, in addition to whatever else you're doing. So for example, I tried and work an 8 hour day, um, and uh, and uh, and so within that day, there's answering emails and there's doing other projects. I might be actually doing design work and drawing, but it's focused on like client work or some other kind of like film projects or whatever. So I'm actually not like constantly drawing and improving myself. It's mixed in with technical stuff. But then what I want to do is take a break from all of that and do a focused hour of actually improving my drawing. So if you can manage that, fantastic. Okay, that's to say the minimum. Try 20 minutes a day, and then build up to half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour each and every day. If you do it in the morning time as a ritual, that is really great, and then you'll be able to improve off of that. So that's kind of my advice when it goes to that. And then we'll talk about some portfolio stuff here too. All right. Great. So let me get into some of these questions about portfolios, and I'm going to kind of like bunch some of these questions up. I'm scanning these a little bit so that we can capture as much of these as possible. Cool. Okay. So basically, there's a bunch of questions about like what you should put in your portfolio, how to apply to story jobs, what you need to be doing for that. And let me see if I can sum this up and give you some general advice. Now, in some of the previous story chats, you can see that on YouTube. We post our replays on that. You can also see that on our Facebook page, the replays as well. We did talk a little bit about portfolios and what to do there. What I recommend is that for a storyboard portfolio, you want to be showing storyboards. That is the main thing you need to be showing. So don't distract your potential client or studio by showing them random character designs, graphic design, animation work, sculpture, non-related visual storytelling work. It should be storyboards and visual storytelling. That's what should be in your book. You open it up, you know exactly what you're looking at. You know exactly what this person should be applying for or doing. Okay. Now, how many samples you want to put in that, it really depends. It varies a lot. But again, general rules here is that you want to have 15 to 20 portfolio pages. So, and these could be digital too, so you can create a PDF book, right? That's in digital format. But I always use like the references like book. I use those terms. So you actually open up a physical book, and yes, sometimes you still have to print out a book and give it to your clients and go to the studios and show them. So at any rate, 15 to 20 pages front to back. So you open it up, and you might have a 2-page spread of storyboards. You can either do it vertical, you could do it horizontal. I would recommend that you don't have them like flip the thing every single time. So like one page is vertical and the next one is horizontal. That could get a little bit of annoying. Or if you do that, you bunch it up. So like your just the layout of your format is vertical versus the first 10 pages are vertical and then the last 10 pages are horizontal, just because of the way it works out of how many drawings you have. That's one way to do it, and it should be examples of your storyboards and your storytelling techniques, not necessarily about your drawing skills. So you don't want to show them figure drawings and studies that you're doing, cafe sketches, even though I'm telling you you should do that. That's all the study work. But what goes in your portfolio are storyboards. What goes in your portfolio is story work, that you know how to apply those drawing skills into your stories. And then what comes out of that is amazing, beautifully designed storyboards that show off your drawing skills. So you should be able to look at a storyboard panel and say, oh yeah, this guy knows his perspective. His figure drawing is really solid because his poses are amazing. And the line quality is good. All the technique is really good. And you see that in a portfolio. You don't have to do a separate thing that shows you know how to do your perspective. It should all be there. You should understand composition and camera work, and that should all be in your portfolio. So you want to do 3 to 5 samples of different story scenarios that you've done. So these could be from, let's say you have a couple of jobs that you've done. You want to show those examples from feature films that you worked on, from television shows that you worked on. If you don't have any experience, you can take a script and board that out, do a sequence that's going to go 50 to 100 panels, and you show the flow and the shots and the continuity, all that, you put that in there. And it's also a good idea to show different variety of styles. So you want to do a comedy versus a drama versus action scene. You might want to do something film noir, and it's got a little more dramatic lighting in there. So those are different examples to show off your own storytelling skills. That's what you put in a portfolio. That's really important there. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense, right? And actually, let me go back to, there's one question you were asking about Europe, and because I was just scanning these, and okay, so again, Mary Comics, thanks for your awesome questions today. I think these are all really relevant. So let me say this and answer. See if I can give you an answer here. I'm living in a country from Europe where there's no animation studio. Should I focus on advertising? Should I focus on advertising if I want to apply as a story artist? Maybe. So let me see if I can sum this up. My take on this: if you're in a market that does not have very many animation studios or film studios, and the work is very hard to come by, what I recommend there is, one, that you own that market. Okay, that's one of my kind of pillars of advice that I want to give to people. So if you're in a small town, for example, or you're outside, you're mentioning Europe, in a place that may not have many animation studios, well, there's probably at least one or two. There's usually people who work in animation, at least a handful. Go meet them all. Okay, now it's a little difficult with Corona. It's going to lighten up, and you can eventually go meet them, or at least connect with them online, so that you're in your town, you're all connected with people, because that's going to be your network, right? So own your town, own your place if you can, right? That's what I mean by that. You also want to tell people that what it is that you do, and what kind of services that you can provide, so that if opportunities come up or people hear of things, then you can offer your services. I would also recommend to connect with people who have similar disciplines, but it's not necessarily story artist people. So animators, writers, producers, film people, so they might be doing commercials or other kind of advertising. And then, like you were also mentioning, if you want to get into advertising, you can do that as well. So if there's more of an advertising market in your particular area, for example, New York, that's one of like the major centers for advertising and commercials and fashion. You can start tailoring your portfolio to some of the clients that might be available in that market. Okay, whereas if you're in LA, you might be doing a lot more film work and TV work, because there's a ton of that in LA, right? And my general advice here is that you should have examples of all of it if you can. And again, this might take you a couple of months to actually build up, so you have enough samples if you haven't done this before. And then you can start, depending on where you want to apply, you can start showing these people. Now, the other cool thing, doesn't matter what market you're in as much anymore. So if you're in a small European country, you can still apply for jobs in other European countries, in other markets such as Canada, United States, South America, even Asia, right? And I get hit up a lot on LinkedIn from people in different markets asking, if I'm available for work or things like that. Partly because they might see the work I have online, or they follow my resume or whatever, and that's where they're going to find me. But this is part of the reason is there are plenty of things out there. You just have to be really smart about looking for them and be ready with a portfolio ready to go. It's like, it's that whole saying that you have to create your own luck, right? You might be lucky and luck suddenly strikes and you get a lucky break, but you also have to be ready and prepared for anything that comes up, because if an opportunity presents itself and you have nothing to show, well then, whose fault is that? It's your own. You got to take responsibility for it. Okay. So get prepared, build up your portfolio. It doesn't matter as much anymore where you live and that market, because the things open up all the time. And when I was in Latin America, giving conferences and stuff, I go around all the time. I visit studios and I ask them what their rates are, who their clients are. And a lot of these people were stuck in their own local market. And I said to them, I said, well, why? Why are you doing this? Go look for where the money is. Go look for where the clients are. Send out solicitations to these people. And yeah, there was language barriers and time, differences, but that's all irrelevant nowadays, right? It's all how you look at it. And so that was my argument, is that they were very talented artists that they were not even considering opening up their market because of their geographic area. And I think that's totally that's a wrong thing to do in today's market. There, you can take advantage of the fact that you are in a smaller area, in a smaller market, and perhaps you have cheaper cost of living. You can have competitive rates versus somebody who's living in Canada or United States. Okay, so look at this, how you spin it, and create opportunity there. So great, you guys. I think this is a really good point to chat, or to end this chat here. And if you guys have any other ideas for topics that you want to talk about, or any of suggestions that we didn't get to today, please just hit us up. You can always email us directly at Storyboard Art on the website, or even respond in the comments on some of these videos that are posted on social media. So this will be the replay will be on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Fellas, have a wonderful May the 4th, and enjoy the week. Be productive and keep on drawing out there. It's good to see everybody. All right, take care.